Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren and this is Putting Them First. I'm a first year, first grade teacher. If you are just following along or popping in for a video for the first time, I'm so happy to have you here. This video is going to be all about my student teaching experience, and I'm also going to answer a bunch of questions. I got so many questions from you guys on Instagram about student teaching, so yeah, this video is going to be for anyone who is going into their student teaching or maybe would like to go into teaching one day, maybe is in the middle of a student teaching semester, or even got some questions from mentor teachers, or I guess cooperating teachers is another word for it. There are probably a lot of words for it. Before we get into the video, I do just want to preface everything by saying that student teaching is very different in different states, by different programs. So even within one university, the early childhood program could look a lot different than the elementary ed program or the special eds program. I mean, everything is very dependent on your program and your state and what requirements you have to meet, or even your country. We do have some friends watching along from New Zealand, hello, as well as Scotland, I think, and some other places. If I didn't say your country, you can leave it below. But anyways, all of this information will obviously be specific to my experience. I'm going to share my experience. So let me first start with that. Like I said, I am a first year teacher, so I am fresh out of college. I earned my bachelor's degree and my master's degree from the University of Florida, more specifically the ProTeach Single Cert program. So I am certified for elementary ed in Florida K-6, and where I currently live in Massachusetts, it is 1 through 6. It's a little different here, but anyways, that's kind of like my educational history. So I went to Florida, go Gators. And in my program, you were expected to complete different, I guess you would call them like student teaching experiences, but they all kind of culminated with a full year, so full school year, full time, meaning you are there every day, all day, just like your classroom teacher would be, internship. And that was very structured and very highly organized. I'm just going to kind of rattle off the other experiences that we did. The last 4 semesters of your bachelor's, you were doing classroom experiences, and in all of these, there were components from your coursework that you needed to try, or things that, like, certain data you needed to gather in your student teaching, so that you're tying the theory of the courses to practice in your classroom or in your student teaching. So kind of wrote it all down so I wouldn't forget anything. But in my experience before the Big Daddy internship, which I'll tell you about in a minute, I did my Practicum 1 experience was just kind of a tutoring, a one-on-one. I worked with a kindergarten student that was at a local church, actually. It was just kind of like a math and tutoring program. We all not worked because we didn't get paid, but we all were partnered with a student within the program, and we all went, I want to say it was like 2 times, maybe 3 times a week. That was just kind of to get started, get the ball rolling. You're working one-on-one with a child, just to kind of get your feet wet and start kind of planning some lessons for that student. Not full-blown lesson plans, but just seeing what their needs were and driving your instruction a little bit, kind of building your understanding of working with kids. Then the next step up from that, Pract 2, we did a very formal training for a literacy intervention program. It's actually called the University of Florida Literacy Intervention, I think is what it stands for. We called it UFLI, U-F-L-I, UFLI. And it's a certain methodology for intervening with beginning readers. So you could be placed with anyone, I think 1st and 2nd grade were like the ideal ages. I had a kindergarten student, but he did very well. So it was a training that we went through. It was pretty intense for I think a few days, all day long. And then we were paired with a student and we worked in the classroom for a little bit, just kind of observing that teacher, and if they wanted us to jump in, we could. And then we would pull our student away from the class to deliver that UFLI lesson. I think it was like every day, or every day that we were there, we did that with the student. Then Prac 3. So now I'm in my first semester of my senior year of my bachelor's. This was more of a classroom role. So for the first time, we were in a classroom. I think that we, again, only had to go maybe 3 or 4 days a week. It wasn't all day. Actually, for this one, we all went to different places outside of Gainesville. So they were no longer such like suburban settings. We were in more of like rural locations to kind of diversify the experiences that we were getting. And I actually was with a 4th grade teacher for this one. So fun story. I loved it. You guys know I'm 1st grade now and it's my favorite grade ever, but this experience almost had me convinced that I needed to be a 4th grade teacher because I loved it so much. And this was in a spring semester. I loved it so much that after our semester was over with the university, I went back every day, all day. So I increased how often I was going when we were supposed to stop going. I decided no, I wanted to go full-time all day, every day because I just loved the teacher. I was involved in the classroom. I wasn't doing a ton of like whole group instruction, but that setting was kind of great for me to build my repertoire, if you will, of teaching experience because this particular school was departmentalized. So their 4th grade had a math and science teacher, I think. Yeah, math and science, that's who I was with. And then she had like a partner teacher who taught ELA and social studies. So the kids would come to us first, or the first group of kids would come through. She would do the lesson, and then they would go to the other teacher, and then the other teacher's kids would come, and it would be the same lesson again with a new set of students. So if you ever get a chance to do student teaching in that kind of setting, it is ideal because you see your mentor teacher teach the lesson and you can just take notes and observe, and then you try it and you basically just do back everything that she just did. Obviously the students are different, so the behavioral challenges might be different, different things might come up during the lesson, but it was pretty freaking cool. So I kept going to that just above and beyond because I loved it. And then the last like practicum experience was referred to as your pre-internship. So the big year-long internship was in my master's year, but before that, in the end of your bachelor's program, we did a semester-long pre-internship. And this was like almost there. It was almost to the level of the internship with the intensity, the requirements. For this one, it was the first time that we had to do observations. So someone from UF was coming to observe us teaching, and our mentor teacher observed us teaching. And this is actually, little side note, this is where I met my best friend, just an absolute superstar. She was in my cohort, and we actually ended up placed together in the single classroom for my pre-internship, or for our pre-internship, along with an incredible mentor teacher who's also amazing. Maddie is my pre-intern, I guess is what you would say. She's over at Primarily Yours. I'll link her channel down below. And then my mentor teacher her name was Chelsea. Her Instagram is at the.turquoise.teacher. But anyways, they're both incredible people, incredible humans, and that was just an amazing experience. But that was for the first time a bit more serious. We were doing observations, and Chelsea did a very great job in bringing us into the cyclical nature of her lesson planning. So in the particular district, Reading Street was the reading basal that was used. So there was a certain kind of routine way to implement that curriculum throughout the week so that you were hitting, or she did it a certain way, so that in her class the students were getting every part of the curriculum where they needed it and as much of it as they needed. And then it was also the first time that we were able to, I think, fully step in. We were able to lead reading, and she had a really interesting rotation system that allowed for the teacher, whether it be Maddie or I or Chelsea, the full mentor teacher, whoever it was, you only were teaching half of the class at a time because the other half was at workstations, and they were on the ball by the time that we got in there in the school year. They knew what they were doing at the stations. So you had half the class, and you basically got to work with a very small group of students. Not a small group, but you get what I'm saying. Getting a little rambly, but anyways, so that was my pre-internship. And then the big master's year internship. So I wrote down a few things because I didn't want to forget to tell you, but the University of Florida requires you to stay. I could be saying this wrong. If someone from UF is watching this, I hope I say this right. They highly recommend that you stay for the master's year, which is essentially a component of the bachelor's program that you did. You do reapply for the master's program. You have to like take the GRE, and you have to pass like a certain number of your FTCEs, like your Florida certification exams, before you can graduate with that and be admitted to the master's program. But anyways, the master's is just one full year. All of our courses were online, and every day, all day, we were in the classroom. So as often as my mentor teacher was there, I was there. School started at 7:30. She got there around 7:10. I got there around 7:10. She stayed till 3:30. I stayed till 3:30. It wasn't contracted time. It was when they were there, you were there. Within reason, but pretty much you were there. I took over gradually, but the whole internship was very well structured by the university, which allowed for student teachers, or interns is the word we would use, but student teachers, to advocate for themselves. I never really had to do that because my mentor teacher was like so great about letting go of responsibilities gradually and giving me the reins just a little bit at a time, but like always on pace with what was recommended or required by the university. But essentially they prescribed like, week 1, you should be doing this. Week 2, this is what you should have built up to. And then like by like midway through the year, you should essentially be teaching all day, every day, planning all day, every day, grading, anything like that you were expected to do and take over from your mentor teacher. So then by the end of it, by the end of the internship or student teaching experience, your cooperating teacher, mentor teacher, classroom teacher, whatever you guys call it, they were handling things like parent communication, IEPs, things like that that legally need to fall on the person who is qualified and licensed to do those things. They were doing them. But all of the teaching, we were doing. All of the planning, with assistance from the mentor teacher or with approval from the mentor teacher, we were doing. So that was a really great experience because it was so comprehensive and because you were so encouraged to be involved. And I mean, it felt truly, because of the relationship that my mentor teacher and I had, it felt like it was our classroom. It never felt like I was a visitor in her classroom. It always felt like I was a viable member of the teaching community. And even at Meet the Teacher, I mean, I was there. I had a letter. Of course, mine said meet the student. I wrote student in parentheses, meet the student teacher, but still, like, the parents got to know me. They had my email address if they ever wanted to contact me. I was invited to a few like events and was able to visit with families and students outside of school. That really, for me, was just like a great practice round of what a first year would be like within certain limitations. So I wasn't doing everything. I wasn't handling all the IEP meetings by myself. I wasn't fielding all parent emails and phone calls by myself. I wasn't supervising everything by myself. Like, there obviously was another adult there, so I know that it will be very different in my first year, but what I am confident in saying is that the University of Florida did a great job in ensuring that you had the most authentic experience of being a teacher without it being your classroom. So anyways, that was my student teaching experience in a nutshell. Now we are going to get started with the Q&A portion of the video. I wrote down all of the questions that I received from my Instagram story so that I could be sure to respond to everyone. But of course, if you ever have a question about anything, please leave it below in the comments. I tried to respond to all of them. I think so far that's been a maintainable task, and I've really enjoyed communicating with you guys and getting to know you guys a little bit more, but also to answer your questions or just have conversations with you below. So if you have any questions that I don't get to or that weren't brought up, leave them down below and I will answer your question, of course. But for now, let's get started with those who responded to the Instagram story. The first person who asked a question wrote something along the lines of they were doing a pre-ST, which I think means pre-student teaching in the spring, and then their student teaching would be in the fall. Is that bad? So my full year-long internship, full-time, full year, all that jazz, the Big Mama internship, that was on a fall spring schedule because I did a study abroad in college. My graduation got all wonky and I ended up on track for a December graduation and not a May graduation. So I don't think it's bad. I finished my student teaching in December. I graduated in December with my master's. And if you are staying in the place where you do your student teaching, I would actually argue that it gives you kind of like an advantage over those who graduate in the spring or do their student teaching in spring, because you are now finished and you are hopefully like leaving a great impression on the school that you just finished your student teaching with, and you are available to step into maternity leaves or other emergency scenarios as a long-term sub or replacement for someone at a time when most other hireable teachers are in a classroom role because they graduated in spring and found a job. So I would say that it's not a bad thing at all. Even if you're leaving the state, it gives you the rest of that school year to sub in the district that you move to kind of get to know the area before you're applying. Yeah, I think it's just kind of a cool thing because you're going into a hiring market, if you will, at a time when it's not super saturated with recent grads. So no, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's my opinion. Take it or leave it. The next question says, what were your first feelings getting in contact with your internship? So I'm assuming this is kind of asking, how did I feel when I met my mentor teacher? I went to a day with my mentor teacher a month or so before our first day together. So the university organized a day where all of the interns and all of the mentor teachers got together. It was a school day, so I know all of our mentors had to get substitutes for that day, but it's Gainesville and it's the university, so it was fine. And we all got together, got to meet our mentor teachers. We did some like getting to know you activities, some non-negotiables. We both wrote down like our non-negotiables, things that we just don't tolerate in a classroom or that we wouldn't tolerate in a collaborative setting, I think. Not tolerate, but things that would not lead to a productive relationship between the two of us. So it was a great time to get to know one another. So I just felt excited because kind of got the nerves out of the way before the first day. I wasn't just walking in. So yeah, the first time I got my placement, I was super excited because it was the school I wanted. It was the ESOL Center School for the county, which is what I wanted, and it was first grade, which is my favorite, so I was just thrilled, and my mentor teacher is awesome. I can't say enough good things, so yeah, I was excited. That was my feeling. Next question. Binders to catch and organize things. What should I have in them at the beginning of the semester? So this is great that you are forward thinking about organization in your student teaching. I have to admit, I kind of had my first semester almost of student teaching in just like taking things and shoving them in my bag before I realized like I should have a system for this because I want to take all these things, but I'm not doing that in the right way. So I kind of checked in with myself and readdressed this. So you're already on the right track that you're anticipating that. What to have at the beginning of the semester, I would say that you should definitely have like a notebook or at least just a set place in your binder that is only for taking notes on any observations. So I did a bunch of observations. This was actually my notebook. So I have a bunch of notes in here from other teachers' classes, things that I observed that I loved, but you should always have like something available for note taking so that if you see something you love, you can write it down. You should also have sections for the subject areas. That way, when you get a resource, you can kind of stow it by subject area. I had like a file folder thing instead of a binder so that it wouldn't mess up the like paper so I could make copies of it. But anyways, that's what I would suggest having in it. I also would suggest you copying the daily plans. Even if that means for you like taking a picture of your teacher's planner every day and storing those pictures somewhere. I went ahead and purchased the same planner that my teacher had. She used an Erin Condren planner, so I purchased one. That's totally my choice. Obviously, I'm not recommending you do that, but it worked well for me because that's how she planned the whole day. So then I would copy over into mine her plans until I started planning. After a while, when I would start planning, she would copy it from mine into hers, but it just worked the best because we had the same system. But now that I'm teaching first grade, I can tell you that I've gone back to last year's Erin Condren and looked at like first week, okay, what do we do in this hour? What do we do in the next hour? So the fact that I have like basically a full year of first grade planned, because I wrote down all of everything that we did every day in my plan book, and now I'm teaching first grade, and it's like amazing. So definitely have a planner or some way of keeping track of what you do every day, because I mean, like, priceless tool, because I'm not starting from nothing in your first year, which is like a really big hurdle I think a lot of teachers have. So that is what I would suggest you as far as like paper flow. There were a few other questions like that were worded a bit different, but that's all I have for organizing paper flow. I also would suggest a Google Drive. I lied. That's my last piece of advice for organizing files. And then someone said, beginning of the semester with your CT, I think means cooperating teacher, I'm not sure, stuff to give them or have ready. I didn't give my teacher anything. I don't know if I was supposed to. I didn't. She had the handbook for my internship, but she was given that at the like meet your intern event that we went to that I mentioned. So she had the handbook so that we could kind of use that shared timeline and shared language to communicate about like what I was doing next in my internship. She had that stuff to have ready. I mean, just have a good attitude. Have your like paper flow and your planner thought through, so that's ready. But yeah, you kind of just have to start, I guess. I don't know. I'm not super helpful there. How to build confidence and gain student respect, not be too nice. Okay, this is a big one. Anytime anyone asks me for my overarching advice for student teaching, my first response is like, don't get stuck in the nice cop role, because it can be tempting, especially if you're coming in mid-year and you're a fresh face and you're young and you know, they just love you, but it will not be a beneficial experience, or won't be as beneficial of an experience for them to just be your friend. You really should use the behavior management that your teacher uses, implement your own behavior management, stick to it, dig into those problem behaviors so you can really find how to best handle big behaviors. And that would just be like my biggest advice for gaining student respect. I would say, remember that you are their teacher. You are not there to be their friend and they have a teacher. You are there to take over as the teacher. So if you were the only one in the room, would you be enough to keep that tight ship going? And if not, you should probably try to do a bit more to manage behaviors and be that teacher leader role, and not just be a friend there for funsies, because you're not there for funsies. You're there for practice, and you need to practice the way that you want to teach in the future so that you can get the most out of it. Okay, there's my soapbox. I'll step off of it now. Next question, something that surprised me. I will say, because it was, I guess, technically like one of the previous experiences I went every day, all day for extra at the end. But this experience was the first one where I had really been going full time. Like anytime they were there, I was there. The biggest thing that surprised me were how strong the relationships are that you build with the students, and how sad you are when they leave. I was devastated. I know that I'm going to be a teacher that cries every year on the last day of school. Like, I already have come to terms with that, because it was just so hard. And I've already said in my internship, I did a spring semester first and then a fall semester. So I only had one semester with them full time all day, every day. And then it was the end of the school year, and then we had the start of a new school year. So even it just being half of a school year, I still cried. Like, I still miss them. I was surprised that they came back to give us hugs. I mean, I was still with the same teacher. We were in a different classroom at the school, but our students in the fall that we had just had in the spring, who are now second graders, would come back to give my mentor teacher a hug, but I was still there too, and they're, oh, Miss B, and they'll give me a hug, and they were so excited, and that was cool. That was a big surprise for me, is how sad and how emotionally attached I got to them when I started going full-time. Next question. How to deal with anxiety at the beginning of your student teaching. I have to say that because of the way that you have structured it, so we like took the stairs into teaching with like just one and then like a little bit more and then, you know, what'd you make of it and the pre-internship and then like here you are. I didn't feel super anxious at the beginning of my student teaching. I more so felt like a weight of responsibility because I felt like this was the last hurrah of like practice and training I was gonna get before like I was doing the dang thing. So I mostly felt just like I needed to take it seriously and I wanted to get the very most out of every day. And so that was kind of a pressure for me. As far as like stage fright or anxiety about like literally getting into that teaching role, I would say to just trust the training that you've had from your program. If you need to script every lesson, do that. I still do that. Even if you don't try to like memorize the script, which I don't, just to type through literally everything, like everything you're going to say is a great thinking process. And it helps to calm my nerves anytime I'm going to be doing like a observation or something. I like to script a lesson just so I can think through literally every part of it. So I would suggest doing that to help with anxiety. And then next question, this is juicy. How to deal with a mentor who is not including you or not helping you learn. So I'm not speaking from experience here at all. I've said a million times, I love my pre-internship mentor teacher and I love my internship mentor teacher. They both were incredibly encouraging and supportive. So I don't really have a bunch of experience in this wheelhouse, but I know that there were some other people in my program who I guess ran into like some issues with stepping into the role, taking things over. And my biggest piece of advice would be to use your program requirements as a means to advocate for yourself in the classroom. So remind your mentor teacher politely that you are there as an extension of your coursework and as an extension of your training program, and that this is a mandatory requirement for you. For instance, we had that like nice timeline that I mentioned all laid out, so I could kind of say, you know, it's, if I needed to, which I never did, I could say it's weeks 9 and 10. By this time I should be teaching social studies, science, and leading all transitions in and out of the classroom. That's just in my handbook. You know what I'm saying? Try to find a way to tie it back to the requirements of your program so that it's coming from like Big Brother, essentially. It's not coming from you. You are just making sure that you are completing the required components of the program. I guess that would be the only way that I would know how to handle that situation. That would be very awkward. So if this is coming from experience, then I'm sorry that that happened to you. Next question, how to stay organized. I kind of already talked about that. I briefly mentioned the Google Drive. Yeah, I have a Google Drive now. It was hard to do in hindsight, so maybe starting it ahead of time would be nice, but I have a Google Drive that is sorted. It has like first grade is like the big folder because I don't even want to say this out loud and speak it into the universe, but probably one day, maybe if I have to, I would teach a different grade. And then there would be a different folder that would say a different grade, but I pray that that never happens. But anyways, there's the first grade folder. And then after that, I have subject area. And then after that, I have like big ideas from the standards. So anytime I had a file, I would put it into the standard or the big idea that it fits, that it teaches. That way, when I'm teaching ELA and I need to teach all about main idea, I can go into first grade, ELA, go into like that set of standards, find the standard number for big idea, and then there are resources there to teach it. So that's a great way to stay organized. It's a lot, but it works for me. Questions to ask your mentor teacher. This is great. I wish that I had like a list of questions to ask. I know that I probably asked a bunch during the Meet Your Mentor event. That seems like it was forever ago because it was probably, I think, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago now. Anyways, the questions that I would ask before, if you can, before the first day, ask just the logistical questions. What time should I get there? Where should I put my things? Where can I be expected to observe? Is there a spot for me in the classroom? Is there a physical space that I can report to or be in while you are teaching that is most effective for you? And then other questions I would ask your mentor teacher about their student teaching experience. you know, they've been in it, I would ask, and I talk with my mentor teacher a lot about hers. I would say, you know, how is your student teaching? What did you wish that you could do differently? What should I really lean into? Ask their advice. I mean, questions to ask. I probably, if I had to count the number of questions I asked my mentor teacher in my internship, like probably upwards of 1,000 questions. I know it was that many. Every day I would ask questions. Ask questions about everything. Literally everything. Even something that they do. If you want to question it, question it. Like, why did you whisper there? Or anything. And it's not coming across as questioning it in the sense of like you would suggest doing something different. It's just like, I want to know why. Every time they did something, I would want to know why. Because don't assume that you're going to remember that they did that and that you would know why they did that. Just like, I ask questions about everything. So, Courtney, if you're watching this, sorry I was a big pain in the butt and asked a bunch of questions, but I'm ready now, I think. So thank you for answering them. Next question. Alrighty, y'all. When I was answering questions, I realized quickly that they were taking much longer than I anticipated and that there were many more questions than I thought there would be. So anyways, it would have been way too long for me to put in just one video. It would have never uploaded. So I am going to wrap it up right here, put a pause on things, and then bring you the second half of this video, just the rest of the questions, probably tomorrow. So that way it's not all one video file and it will actually be useful to you guys. So anyways, that is all for today. That is all the questions I can answer in one video, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you have any questions that didn't get answered, you can leave them down in the comments and I will respond to them as best I can. They might get answered in the next video or they might not. So feel free to leave them below. I'm so happy you guys made it here today to watch this. And as always, if you have any ideas, suggestions, anything for my teaching, my classroom, anything for my videos, you can leave them in the comments. I am very open to ideas, and you guys know I like to kind of adapt what I'm doing to accommodate those great ideas. So anyways, I'm so happy to have you here, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Subscribe if you want to stick around. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye.